Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Welcome to Born to Achieve podcast, the show that inspires and motivates you to unlock your full potential and achieve your goals. With your host, Warren Andrew Pinder. Let's get started on this week's episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.
I am born to achieve greatness, and so are you. On today's episode of the Born to Achieve Greatness podcast, we have with us Mr. Sheldon Greaves. He is the founder of the Guerrilla Scholarship. I want him now to explain, as a backdrop, he and I were just talking briefly about it, and basically it's going to be kind of interesting for you to understand that wherever you are, you'll be able to learn. Welcome, Mr. Green.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Warren. It's a pleasure.
Excellent.
So Guerrilla Scholarship is basically the idea that you can do important intellectual or at least interesting learning projects and work, even if you're not signed up at a university or part of a university staff or faculty. It's possible to do some really interesting and even groundbreaking things. And it's also kind of a nice life path that keeps life interesting. It tends to ignore disciplinary boundaries. One day it might be history. One day it might be economics. One day it might be the birds in your backyard, whatever. It also tends to avoid the trap of specialization. So you're not learning more and more about less and less. And sometimes it gives you a chance to look at areas of study that academics miss because, they can't find the funding to go off and study something like that. Guerrilla Scholarship is done on the cheap or for free, so we don't have that problem.
Wow.
It's a wonderful way to approach the world, and it can be an awful lot of fun.
Mr. Greaves, tell us, right? Give us an example. Let's place this note. Let's break it down. Give us an example of exactly so they'll understand what you're saying.
Okay, so here's an example. A number of years ago, there was a paper by a guy named Richard Jensen, and he wrote an article in which it was in a history journal, in which he claimed that the whole thing during the 1800s, that there was a bunch of signs and stuff saying no Irish need apply, that this was a thing. He claimed that wasn't real, that didn't actually happen. Now, we go over to a guy by the name of Richard Freed. He's a lawyer. He's got a couple of kids at home, and he likes to Xerox articles that he thinks his kids would find interesting. And he brought home an article that talked about this thesis, what this guy was claiming. Well, his daughter, Rebecca, thought that was kind of interesting. So she hops online, and using Google, she finds an old newspaper database, and she starts looking. And right away, she starts seeing pictures of businesses with signs in the window that say no Irish need apply. And she finds examples of job listings that have that in it. And she finds examples of protests against this sort of thing. So she starts collecting all this stuff. And then she reached out to another guy who was a retired professor of history and said, "Have I got something here?" And the guy says, yeah. This is amazing. So long story short, what happened was this retired professor worked with this kid, this middle schooler, to take this material, and he showed her how to turn it into a paper that could be submitted for peer review, which it was.
Yeah.
And published in the same journal that this other article had been published in. And this thesis of that this no Irish need apply was a myth gets overturned by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
So that's just one example. Another example would be a guy named Lawrence C. Ball. He's an amateur astronomer. He has discovered between 2000 and 2004 he discovered 111 new asteroids that had never been seen before. And he did it all from a rooftop observatory that he'd built on his house.
Right.
You know, most of the comets that are discovered by amateurs, just sitting there with their telescopes, watching for stuff. Most of the new species that are discovered by amateurs, not by.
But isn't that something that goes
scientists.
back in history with some of the most profound inventions? Isn't that the same?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, before, I would say, I don't know what, the mid-19th century, most of the scientists were amateurs. In fact, they were pretty much all amateurs. In fact, the word scientist started out as kind of a dig at anyone who was so naive as to think that science could be something you did for a living, rather than just something you did because it was interesting to you.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and now here we are. So yeah, and it's still possible to do some really amazing things, whether it's science or in history or in mathematics or philosophy or music or art. It's all out there. You just have to know where to look.
Definitely. They're not, disclaiming that person should aspire to go to university. But if the circumstance is that you're not able to, we're saying that, this Guerrilla Scholarship, your method would help those to understand that from the place and where you are, you can learn. Tell us, right? Can non-academics really do high quality work? I mean, you just described it, but
yes, they can. With a couple of caveats. The first is it's going to take longer because it takes time to get your skills together. The other thing too is that you kind of need to, if you don't have a university, you kind of have to collect the things that university people have that you don't, like colleagues, people who are also interested in it, that you can bounce ideas off of. Information resources, like access to papers and books and that sort of thing. And for that, 2 words: public library. Your public library has stuff that you don't even, you can't even imagine what.
But Mr. Greaves, that's so true, right? But how many persons are actually, like before, right? I mean, I know growing up, the public libraries where we went to study, and you found that was the research, the resource. Today, persons go to the public library, I guess, for an experience. But still, the resources are there, and they're not really expanding or taking advantage of. But that's a good place to start. You're saying
absolutely. Go and talk to the reference librarian, and what you're going to discover is that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of under the hood that most people don't know is there. But if you ask the reference librarian, you can they'll be happy to set you up with stuff. There are other interesting ways that you can get information. For instance, here in the United States, you can contact your local government documents repository. Every congressional district has one. And one of the services they offer is that they can put you in touch with a list of all of the experts that the government uses to consult on questions, that someone in the government might have. So if you need to know something about salmon populations in California or copyright laws in France, they can put you in touch with someone who knows more about that than you'll ever be able to make use of. Wow. And it's, that's your real tax dollars at work,
That's real. Yeah. That's
so
real.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of things that are out there that people can use. And I talk about this a lot in the book I just published. Right. And I suppose we'll be getting to that in due course.
Sure.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Man, written by Warren Andrew Pinder and Dominique Bradford. This book passionately focuses on the challenges women have been made to go through and how to overcome them. In some cultures, being a woman disadvantages the girl child. This book carefully exposes the hurdles you might face. This masterpiece is the ultimate self-help guide for women. It reveals your true purpose and identity. Get your copy today. Available from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
That is good. I mean, it's unorthodox, but it's in the same way, and you're achieving the same goals. It's interesting that this method right? The Guerrilla Scholarship, in which you talk about. Like, it's just reaching out, because I'm thinking of a businessman here in the Bahamas that, would have gone to university, but realized it wasn't for him, and he started his road a different way. But I've had an opportunity to listen to him really control the narrative of a meeting and how he became successful, basically. And I saw that path, and it's from resources and really him being able to build around him persons with the expertise that he needs, that, to develop his ideas and so forth. And this is likened, I guess, to what you're saying.
Yeah, it really is. There's also, you mentioned something else too that I think is kind of important, and that is one thing that people can do is look for organizations. Now, you can look up one place that you can look for experts is a place like LinkedIn.
Yes.
And message them, but try to do it in a way that it doesn't look like you're spamming or scamming them. That might not be easy, but finesse it. The other thing you can do is you can consult something called the Encyclopedia of Associations.
Yes.
And most libraries have copies. I think there's an online version, but it's really expensive to access it. So just go to your library. And you can find every organization that has anything to do with anything. And then, contact those people and say, do you have a newsletter? Who is working on this or that? Are you having any conferences possible to attend? Do you have webinars? And get to know who the experts are.
And this is the encyclopedia. Say it again. This is the
Encyclopedia of Associations.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much any nonprofit group that's on file, and maybe even a few that that are no longer extant, but the organization is still kind of the contact might still give you someone.
Right.
So yeah, these are all ways to do it. Getting in touch with people, I find, is often more fruitful than getting in touch with a particular book or an article. It takes a little more work, but the advantage of getting in touch with the person is that if the person is really, a player, they're going to be up to date on the very latest and greatest.
Mm-hmm.
A paper that you find might be years old, might be months old, but if you really need up-to-date information. The other thing I've found is if you can find a person in a field who has recently retired from that field.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because now that they're retired, they can say what they really think.
Okay.
And sometimes that's important. Sometimes you really need to do that. So the other thing too is that there's a lot of literature out there that's produced by the universities. Unfortunately, a lot of it is stuck behind these paywalls, and they're expensive, and you might have to pay, $35 for a 5-page paper, and that's ridiculous. Luckily, there is a movement to get some of that stuff out and into places where it's freely available to the public. Now, there's actually quite a struggle going on behind the scenes about this, because the people who run the journals are making obscene amounts of money selling this stuff, to universities. But if you go to a university and try to get access, usually they won't let you, because the rules are it's only available to people who are students, staff, or faculty.
Right.
There are actually some rather elaborate pirate sites that have hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of academic papers that that you can comb through and download. And yes, okay, it's a copyright thing, and technically it's against the law. But then again, so is jaywalking. So that's kind of my feeling to it. Another important thing to do is just to develop some habits that keep your own brain fresh, and keep you going, keep you thinking. And probably the best one for me has been writing in a journal every day.
Okay.
Just anything, whatever's on your mind. I try to write 300 to 500 words in longhand every single day. And if you keep doing it, you're going to find yourself writing something down and going, hey, that's pretty good. That was a pretty good idea.
Yep, that would be an idea. Just going to say it. That would be the idea. That would be the next big, industrial boom.
Yeah, and what I do is when I finish a journal, a book of notes, I put it aside for a while, and then I go back to it a couple months later, and I go through it. And if I see something that strikes me as particularly interesting, I'll transcribe it onto a 3x5 card. And so I've got this little stack of cards, and any one of those cards could become a paragraph in a book, or an article, or a presentation, or a blog post. The thing is, there are entire intellectual careers that have been built around exploring the implications of just one potent idea.
Yeah.
You just need one really good idea to get yourself going.
Exactly.
But the more the merrier.
But that is great. That is great. How can ordinary people, cope? Because as we know, there's all this good information. How are they able to disseminate, the disinformation, you want to know, because then you can't you're taking this information from academic scholars. How is it tested? Is it right for me to continue in that vein?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a huge problem because academic fraud is growing. There's more of it now than there was, say, 10 years ago. And part of this is because a lot of academic research has turned into a grants game. And so what they're doing is they're gaming the system to get that grant money or to get prestige. And frankly, it can be kind of a mess. The other problem, too, is that you've got people who are writing papers using AI, and the AI is just putting stuff in that paper that's nonsense. In fact, what was it? Just a couple of years ago, Springer Verlag, which is like one of the biggest publishers of academic papers, had to withdraw thousands of papers from their journals because it turned out that they were all bogus, So what do you do? How do you do that? There are some tricks. The first is check and see if the journal that you're looking at is legit. And one way you can do that is to contact your reference librarian. They have access to indexes and lists of journals that are real and journals that are fake.
Right.
And they can help you with that. The other thing is read a couple of paragraphs. If it makes sense, even if you don't understand it, but if the sentences sound like sentences and there's structure and it sounds like real prose, okay, that's probably okay. But if it doesn't, it could be bogus. If you find more than, say, 2 or 3 spelling errors in a page, forget it.
Yes.
It's not real. That's another one. Another way to look is to run down, find someone who does know and say, is this real? Is this legitimate? So these are all things. And the thing is kind of ironic is that one of the things that I did as part of my whole thing in Guerrilla Scholarship. Now, I got my degree, as I said, in ancient Near Eastern studies, which is like clay tablets and all that sort of thing. And my area of emphasis was the Hebrew Bible.
Right.
But by a really weird string of events, I ended up with 2 other guys co-founding a university that was designed specifically for people in the intelligence, counterterrorism, and executive protection communities. And so one of the things that I learned working with these intelligence people is that the difference between a regular scholar and an intelligence analyst is that the intelligence analyst always has to keep in mind that someone is trying to fool them.
Okay.
Disinformation for them, that's like another day at the office.
Yeah.
So they are very careful about who they trust. They build up, a list of the sources that they trust. And if there's something that they're not sure about, they go check that list and see if anyone there has said anything about it. If someone passes you information and it turns out to be bogus, if it's an honest mistake, that's one thing. But if it turns out to be a pattern, that's it. You don't trust that source anymore.
Right.
They're done. It's over. We all live in an information bubble, kind of in the same way that we are all on a diet. It's just that some diets are deliberate and others aren't. You just have to take care of what's in your bubble.
Right.
But leave it open enough that new ideas can, in fact, make their way through to you.
Right.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. There's no doubt about it. It's tricky.
Yes,
Yeah,
100.
but there's a chapter again in the book. I have a huge chapter on disinformation in there, but I have another chapter in there on basically the care and feeding of your information stream, what you let in, and how you take care of it once you have it. So yeah, it's a process, but it's fun.
So specialization, right? If I want to learn about a particular subject, where do I begin?
Okay, so here's a trick. There's a trick that I like to use. Once again, this starts with going to the library, or if you're not able to go to the library, you can go to a website called encyclopedias.com, and they have online for public access something like 300 different encyclopedias. So what you do is you put in your topic, and you get 4 or 5 articles on your topic, and you go to the end of each article, and there's usually a list of sources, a bibliography. Lay those bibliographies side by side, and look to see which book or article keeps showing up, the one that they're all pointing to as really important, or the 2 or 3. And start there.
So you go to encyclopedia.com.
Yeah.
Right. This is no trick. This is something that would help persons that wants to become an expert on a particular topic.
Yeah.
Right? So you start at encyclopedia.com and you put in
your topic, whatever it is.
You put in the topic, whatever it is you want to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you scroll down and you will find the information with videos as well. You said
sometimes, yeah. There's usually a list of sources.
Right.
Like you say, see which sources keep showing up in all the different articles, and that's the one that the experts think is the real deal.
Exactly, that's the real deal there.
Yeah, and you can start with that. If it's a bit too complicated, that's okay. Look for like a popular book or article or video on the subject, and just start with that, but move past that as soon as you can.
Okay.
Sometimes I have even started with a children's book once or twice. There's some really good kids books out there, even some of the older ones. Take a look at those. And then just slowly start to build and gather what you can. Find out who the big experts are, the ones who really know what they're doing, the ones that everybody goes to. Read what they have to say. Sometimes, if you've read somebody's book or books, it might even be worthwhile contacting them directly. If you have a question, say, I was reading your book and really enjoying it, and I had a question because here you say this, but can you elaborate, or does that relate to this over here?
Yeah.
And what I found is that very often experts are delighted to talk to someone about their subject.
Yes.
Especially if it's clear that they've been paying attention.
Yes.
Now for a commercial break.
Achieve Men, written by Warren Andrew Pinder. In this book, you will learn the 7 steps to achieving your dreams and goals. Given the vision to share how the acronym of the word achieve can be used systematically in your day-to-day life. Each of us is given a unique gift from God. Get your copy today. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
And then, with our children, with our kids, right? How do we get them really interested in learning outside of school? Because that's basically what we're saying. We want them to understand that, it's not all about the formal setting, but you learn every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, luckily, we are learning machines, it's what we do, whether you're perusing, the tabloids in the checkout line, or you're reading Homer in the original Greek. We just love to pull in information, and it's fun. I've never understood the phrase makes learning fun. To me, that's like saying makes breathing fun. It's just natural. It's what we do. So, but for kids, for me, what made the big difference was that I had adults in my life who were interested in learning, and kids pick up on what the adults in their lives are interested in, or if they, or what's important to them. So if I saw my dad reading a book, engrossed in a book, I'm like, okay, that's what grown-ups do,
Right.
so I would pick up a book, or, if mom said, here's a book or a movie or something, and they're clearly excited about it. It's not because they think you should read it, but because they're really excited about it.
Yes.
You pick up on that. The other thing to do is to take the time to expose kids to different things, but do it in a way that gives you a chance to show that you are interested in it as well.
Yes.
It's a lot of it is just leading by example. So I can remember once when I was very young, my mother was she was a member of the Friends of the local public library, and they started a program where they had prints of famous paintings that people could check out and bring home and hang on.
Mm-hmm.
She got the assignment of picking the first 100 paintings that would be in that collection. So all of a sudden, the house is full of these art books and these prints and all this stuff. And I'm like, what's this, Mom? What are you doing? And she goes around and she's explaining to me, that, oh, this is what we're doing. And this is, a painter by the name of Monet. And this weird one over here is Picasso. Oh, wow, that's really wild. Look at that, and just kind of let the kids see that it's enjoyable and that it's fun. We have this horrible way of training the fun out of learning.
Yeah.
And
I have a cousin that has a son, must be about 6 or 7, and he's hyper energy, but anytime he sees a tractor or any type of heavy equipment, excavator or whatever, he just goes crazy. And the unique thing about this is that he can tell you what machine it is. He can tell you the category, it's a 960 Caterpillar. And I'm like, boy, what you doing? In his mind, he's saying, I'm going to have my own business with my big trucks, my Mack truck and this. And you're wondering like where he's picking it up from. It's just amazing that when kids identify, you can tell that unique talent that is there. And I guess I say that to say what you're saying is just basically to enhance it. You can't deprive him of wanting to learn more about that. Even though he's he's probably in grade 2, I think. You can't deprive, and I guess that's where what you're talking about, this unorthodox learning process, really pays. Learning is all around us. It's just tapping into our emotions and what we really want to learn.
Yeah, it is. And it's natural and
right.
It's healthy. And sometimes I think the best thing for being sad is to go learn something.
Yeah. Make you feel good. It makes me feel good. Yeah,
it does. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. Let's jump into your book. Tell us about your book, and let our listening audience know how they can reach out to you. As you said, if they're interested.
Absolutely. The book is called The Guerrilla Scholar's Handbook. It was published in late June of this year, so it hasn't been out very long. And it's available in hardcover, softcover, ebook, and audiobook through Amazon and Bookfinder. And you can also find access to it at spines.com, which is my publisher.
Okay.
The book is part memoir, it's part how-to guide, and it's also kind of something of a manifesto that maybe it's time to take back learning as just a public activity. There's a lot of hints and tricks and tips, just a couple of which I've shared with you here. It gives a lot of examples of how people have gone and not just learned interesting things, but done so in unusual ways. I talk about how the 2 other guys that I work with, how we went and founded a university and how people can found their own learning groups, whether it's a book circle or a salon or even a university. You can create your own. I talk about a couple of college kids in San Francisco who went and took their collection of books and turned them into a public library that's still going after 18 years. There's just so many wonderful things out there that happen when you engage people with the idea that learning is really the only kind of learning that matters. And and my book takes you through that, shows you how to do it, shows you how to avoid some of the pitfalls, and hopefully will stimulate some ideas, get people thinking about how they can use learning and Guerrilla Scholarship to enrich their lives, and most importantly, enhance their communities, because it really is a community thing.
Yes. See, like this information that you're sharing, and that's what we try to foster here, and get, through Achieve Movement. It's like you're sharing this information, right? In hopes that persons will dwell into it and take away from it, and then they turn around and share it with other people. So the synergy that this brings is just perfect, because we want persons to understand that you don't have to be in the position that you're in, or where you feel displaced or unwanted or uncomfortable in regards to what it is. You can create your own success. You can write, you can control the narrative of what your dreams are, finding your purpose, how, maybe go into encyclopedia.com and just type in purpose. Type in that this, what is it that I, I'm born to achieve, in terms of greatness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Kelly and I,
if you're short on ideas, another trick is to go to a bookstore, look at the titles, and write down the ones that really grab you.
Right.
And then go outside and see if there's a pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, go find it. Go find it. And maybe like just talking off, you go and you see something you like that you really like, you're interested. Start just doing some research on it. And maybe you will find that it's just, hold on, I'm into this, and you develop and you become an expert on it. That's just simple, eh?
Yeah, it's true.
Mr. Greaves, you got the last word. Tell us, just leave us with some wisdom.
Okay, well, I start the book with a quote by Stephen Jay Gould, who's a naturalist. He wrote a lot of books about dinosaurs and stuff like that. And he said something that I think is just really profound. He says, I am somehow less interested in the weight and convolutions of Einstein's brain than I am in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweatshops.
Wow. Think on those things. That is real. That is real. It's just, it's just simple. Someone expanded their talent. Others, they just sat on it. I guess that's it. That's basically what you just said.
That's right.
All right.
Right.
It was so good having you with us, sir.
Warren, it was a pleasure.
That our audience would you dropped a lot of resources there that they can go and research and hopefully take them to the next level of learning. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Warren. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Right. Good seeing you. All right, sir.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Born to Achieve. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and motivating. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Stay focused on your goals, and we'll see you on the next episode of Born to Achieve.
Take advantage of this incredible opportunity. Sign up today and claim your free ebook at www.borntoachievegreatness.com. Follow us on Facebook at Achieve Movement Inc. Get your copy of Exploring Achieveland, A Journey to Realize Your Dreams, Motivational Stories of Kindness, Inspiring Stories for Kids on Amazon and Kindle.